Hello, I'm Madison. I apologize in advance. I currently am going through, I have a cold or something like that, and my voice is really raspy, and I may have to clear it a few times, so I apologize in advance for that. But I'm going to be talking about this presentation called Now What? It's kind of a lengthy title. Now What? We have an estimate of the size of our uncatalogued collection, but what's our plan for cataloging it? So this was presented at the Fall 2021 Federal Depository Library Conference by Amy Laub Carroll, who is the the Federal Regional Depository Librarian at University of Kentucky Libraries. So she starts out the presentation by giving us a little bit of background about her library. It has been a depository since 1907, and it's been a regional depository since 1967. So in 1998, they got a new building called W.T. Young Library, and so their depository collection was split between the new building and the basement of their older building. So the problem that Amy is trying to address here is that 1/3 of her federal depository collection is residing in closed stacks in the basement of their science and engineering library. And they didn't know how much of it was actually represented in their online catalog. So, although the materials that aren't cataloged in that portion of the collection are listed in their shelf list, they did want to make them more accessible. So, in order to do that, they needed to first determine how much of the collection needed to be cataloged. So in 2019, their Associate Dean for Collections and Tech Services asked them to estimate the size of the uncatalogued portion of the depository materials. So in order to do that, they developed a procedure to compare the cataloged portion to the total linear measurements of the whole collection. So they made a spreadsheet. They had a graduate student assist them with this. They measured the linear feet of material that was on the shelves and then multiplied that by 52 to come up with the estimated number of items. So that was just like their estimated size of the books on the shelves. That is an instruction provided by GPO for determining the size of a depository collection. So they then divided that by the estimated number of measured items to find the percentage of items that were cataloged. Once they measured the collections, they decided that they needed to know the percentage of serials that were in the collection. And I'll explain later why they do that. So they went back and they took slips of paper and put them in the shelves at the start and the end of each serial run. And then they had their graduate assistant measure that. So with all of these measurements taken, the results that they found were about 62% of the collection is actually cataloged, which is more than they originally thought. Of that 62%, 61% are monographs, and the other 39% are serials. They had 234 separate serial titles. So there is a total of 7,000-ish linear feet in the whole collection. So approximately 365,000 items. And of those items, 140,000 were not cataloged. So in doing all this measurement and calculation, the challenges that they found, there are many duplicates and triplicates in the collection. So she explained it as there is a problem at their library of rampant misshelving, and what happens with this is they think an item is missing or lost, and they end up ordering a duplicate or even a triplicate of the item, and in this process they've found those and they've needed now to weed those out, those extra copies. So they've also run into issues with verifying call numbers because they were using the dead Sudoc stem, which is no longer used by them, and so they needed to change those out. They also ran into some preservation issues. They found documents that had very brittle paper, so those are needing to be moved into a preservation status. They also found superseded materials that haven't been removed, or a previous edition essentially that has been superseded by a newer, more accurate edition of whatever the document is. So those needed to be weeded out as well. So they figured out that it was going to take about 5 minutes of copy cataloging time for each item, and through all their calculations that came to about just under 4 years in order to catalog all the uncatalogued items for a full-time employee. What they did with the serials is they decided they're going to just keep those as serial records, so that will cut down on cataloging time, and that's why they went ahead and measured how much of the collection actually is serials, because that helps a lot. They're also deciding to narrow in on specific areas. For example, they have material on the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and they want to highlight this because it's about a marginalized group and it hasn't been given the attention it deserves. So they're choosing topics like this to prioritize in cataloging. They are going to look into hiring more graduate assistants or perhaps temporary employees, maybe even contracting out. And then as they go, they're going to kind of get a better sense of how long it takes to catalog things, so that they can revamp as they go. And that's pretty much the whole presentation. Yeah, thank you for listening, and again, I apologize for my voice and clearing it. All right, bye.